Hello, internets. It's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We're coming here, somewhat sadly,
Yes.
talk about Counterpart, Season 2, Episode 10.
We're mourning for Yannick.
We're mourning for Yannick and perhaps the entire series. At this moment, as of recording, it is, in fact, the series finale. Could it be picked up at some point in the future? Yes. But I feel like the odds are this is probably the last episode of Counterpart. And that is a shame.
It is a shame.
It's a very good show.
It's a very good show.
So, let's jump in, though. Last episode is bookended, somewhat appropriately, by Yannick. We see Yannick decides, hey, I'm going to take Mira Prime's advice and go visit Mira Alpha and her kids. And so he does. And then, you know what? I thought it was cool that Mira Alpha does not judge him.
No.
She's like, cool, you're great, hug.
Yep.
She didn't start with a, hey, where the hell have you been? And why did you run away with someone like I was told you had done?
Yes.
So that was, it was a very touching reunion moment. And it's like, oh, look at that. Yannick's story is wrapped up. He found happiness. Ta-da! No, that's not what happens because here's your last chance. Spoilers.
What?
I know.
How dare they?
At the very end. How would you possibly tell me what happens at the end? We're telling you what happens at the end. All right, so
just in case you were going to decide to title it not spoilers.
Like in case you, or if you're watching it in like 5-minute increments, and like, okay, I've just watched the first 5 minutes. Now I'll watch what they say about that. Now I'll watch the next 5 minutes. Okay. Yannick has the flu.
Yes.
It's going to kill everyone, and he's dying in the park. And his, I think he actually dies. I don't know. I think he's
probably gets overcome. Yeah. I mean,
he's on the ground. He's dead. And his granddaughter's running to his body to like, what's going on? Let me breathe in fumes. Okay. Anyway,
he's probably sneezing on them anyway.
So much like the series itself, kind of in some ways, chronologically anyway, begins and ends with Yannick, so does this episode. Yannick started the whole thing.
Yep.
And he's now ended the series. So, a dark ending.
Yes.
One would say.
Yes.
It's a weird mixed message in that it starts with like for much of the episode, it's a kind of a hopeful thing of like,
sure.
Hey, like for instance, there's that line. We'll skip around a little bit here, but there's a line that Claire's trying to convince Spencer to give up the location of the Indigo folks.
Yes.
She says something like, there's these two worlds. Yeah. But what if it's not that one side's an abomination that needs to be eradicated? What if it's nature's way of us trying to find acceptance? And that kind of works because Spencer gives up the goods. But you would think like maybe that's the tone of this episode.
It's like, well, here's the place where you can go where you're supposed to get blown up.
Well, good point.
I guess she's supposed to be dead, right?
True.
She's supposed to have done it already.
Yeah.
So here's a place that's been blown up.
But I think that's probably the last thing he knows, too. I think he was giving legit info. I mean, I don't know that he was like, oh, you should probably go to Madrid because that's where one of the people is going to hang out. I mean, I think I don't know. Maybe,
you don't think he knows that?
Yeah, I didn't think he was setting them up. But you're right. Good point. I hadn't thought of it till this moment that maybe Spencer was actually giving them crappy info.
Yeah, like, oh, here's a place we were already supposed to be.
Yeah, you're going to waste your time going here. All right, good point. But so in that moment, though, I thought, oh, well, see, that's where this is going.
Right.
And when we had correctly predicted that the two Howards would have their Yannick test,
sure,
and that they would pass that test, and they do, and so it just felt like there was like a little sense of, hey, look, these two worlds can coexist in a way. And then kind of basically the rug gets pulled out from you at the end.
Yes.
It's like, no, actually, there's going to be a horrible genocide, and all the people that you care about probably going to die. Who cares if Peter and Claire get along? Because Peter's probably going to die now. And, Howard Alpha? Well, he's sad for 3 weeks, and then he'll be dead. Okay. Okay. Anyway, Back on course. All right, so Yannick, for a little while, has some peace with his actual daughter.
Yes.
He's like, I hope you enjoyed that Alphaville tape, because, boy, it cost us a whole lot. And meanwhile, then Howard Alpha has, been sent back to the Alpha side. He gets interrogated for some amount of time, or he's just, being asked all these questions. He's like, I've told you what I know. Let me go home, please. Yeah. They relent, and there's a very touching scene with Howard Alpha and Emily Alpha back at home. They're there again. It's like reset, but it's not reset,
right? Because
they're both very different people at this point. And so Emily Alpha's kind of making a point of, okay, yeah, I was not a great person, but I'm going to work on I'm going to be better. I'm going to work on myself. Hence, better angels. I don't think she says the term better angels, but that's the idea here. Because I think Howard Alpha says something like, look, we'd all like to be better versions of ourselves, but I just don't know if that's possible. And so at this moment, he's not convinced that they can
get past it.
Because he's come to the conclusion, yeah, I knew you were a bad person all this time, or that you were, doing
keeping
these
secrets from me, but
keeping secrets from me, having an affair, doing all these bad things. But I was staying with you because I thought it's because I loved you, but really it was just cowardice, and I didn't want to lose you, and I didn't. In some ways, I think he just didn't want to wreck status quo, maybe, or like he was afraid of being alone.
Well, yeah, afraid that she would leave him, or that would lead to their end, which technically it did in the other universe.
Yeah.
Once he, it confronted her, then it ended up driving a wedge between them. She said as much.
But it's a pretty big.
I mean, Emily Prime said as much.
It's a big moment, when he's basically saying, "I don't love you." I mean, that's like, whew. That's a big moment of truth there to come out, or like, and for him to come to that realization. I don't know that he says, "I don't love you," but I'm saying that's the gist of what he's. You don't think so? He's like, I thought it was love, but it wasn't.
Oh.
It was cowardice.
Right.
So the reason why I got out of that was.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about the time that he spent at her hospital bed, which, was devotion, but maybe part of him was questioning the life they had built together. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
See, it's something where it's like, their death spares us what might have happened.
Their ill-advised attempt to reconcile and just goes south.
Yeah, good thing she died. He doesn't have to worry about that.
Cut to a year later, they're not talking. Like he's like turning up the TV to ignore her. Oh, we're much better now. I'm gonna go play Go with that guy in the park that you used to have an affair with. There at that moment, their relationship is definitely on rocky ground. And what we see as the episode goes on, it seems like when he sees her, that the scene where she ultimately dies, or she gets mortally wounded.
Yes.
I think he is seeing her at work, seeing her. I think he's seeing a different side of her, or a side of her that he's rekindling his affection for
I think so. I mean, I think he was still wanting to protect her from what she was doing, which, it's like, yeah, the planet's at stake. I got to do this.
So that moment it's very powerful, and we're left to think, oh, maybe they can't work it out, as in their conversation. We then, I believe, we cut to Peter is with Naya. They're desperate because Claire's disappeared. They get a phone call from Howard Prime. Howard Prime's like, "Yep, I got Claire." And Peter's like, "You touch her."
Yes.
Oh, okay, Peter? You sure? But basically, Peter says, "Look, I'm not even in I quit.
Yeah.
I'm not even in the business anymore. And I turned Claire. She's on our side now.
Yeah.
Which is basically what Howard Prime wanted to hear, because apparently Claire had already told that he's trying to get confirmation. And so he hangs up. He's like, I'll get back to you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, sounds like you're telling the truth, Claire. And he says, look, we're trying to find, we got to find out where this, plan's going down.
Yes.
The guy in there knows. Apparently you don't, you Claire. So I'm going to give you a half an hour. And so he puts Claire in the room with Spencer.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is going to happen at the end of the half hour? Is he just going to shoot Spencer? Is he going to torture Spencer? Is he going to kill
torture, maybe.
Claire?
I would think he would torture
Was Claire
Spencer.
in danger, I guess?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either, really.
No, I mean, she doesn't have the information.
Right. But I mean, in other words...
So why torture Claire?
Not torture her,
What's
but
wrong
maybe
with
just
you?
like, you have a half hour and I'll kill you. I don't know.
No, half hour before I have to do something. That's all it means.
Yeah, I agree. So she's got a half hour before Spencer will have bad things happen.
Half hour to, talk about your emotions.
Right. And she is, a professional manipulator.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a good strategy to have her work on Spencer.
Yeah.
As opposed to just punching him.
Yeah.
She's another good scene, where she's honest, open with him, and basically like, look, we've been had.
Yes.
This is maybe this other side isn't so horrible, and this, as I mentioned, the idea of like maybe this is all about acceptance, not about destroying each other. So obviously, as we see, acceptance not something Mira at least is interested in. But so your thought, you put an interesting spin on this with the idea that maybe Spencer wasn't actually being as helpful as I thought he was being.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's one of the things that I think as television viewers, we've come to expect certain things from interrogations. So typically in TV shows you see torture being applied to people and then you give the truth. But in reality, studies have shown that people will give false information. Maybe they're deliberately giving false information,
just to avoid pain.
They make stuff up. I think all along, what if we look at what they gained from it, which is a location where she was supposed to have killed herself already.
She being Ethel.
Ethel, yeah. So they got lucky with that, but that was going to be something they probably would have discovered anyway. So I think he was just sort of like, okay, here's the thing that you would have gotten anyway.
Got you. All right, fair enough. And somehow, surprisingly, there were two people survived that we didn't think were going to survive in this episode or season, I guess. One of them is Spencer.
Yeah.
I thought we had Spencer marked for death.
Yeah.
Somehow.
It's like
he survived.
Yeah. He really should go back to that casino because he is just very lucky.
Yeah. Spin that roulette wheel.
Don't give the money to any bums.
That was Peter, but yeah.
Oh, right, Peter.
But he has Peter's luck in this moment. The other guy.
Spencer. Yeah, Spencer was going to die. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking. Yeah, Peter. We thought might die, but by the halfway through the season, I was like, I think he's going to hang in there. The other guy was Ian, and somehow Ian survived too. Good on you. Tip of the cap, Ian. You lived through the season. I can't believe you did that. Okay, so
alone.
So the location of the Woods cabin has been identified, and it was one of my theories for why Ethel was left alive, or why she was given a different plan.
Right.
Was that she's the decoy, or they'll
But
go out there.
those two forces join up. So Howard Alpha and Howard Prime and Emily Alpha all get together.
Right.
Which I thought was, there's somebody outside the door. It's like I'm just outside to see these people. It's like it's not being stealthy at all. She's like, here I am. And he's like, oh, good, yeah, I can't wait to get rid of you.
And it did remind me, we had a couple of scenes with Howard Alpha and Howard Prime, interacting, and it was one of the things I kind of missed about this season compared to last season was when they interact. When J.K. Simmons is interacting with himself, that's quality TV. And so, like, for instance, on the car ride into the woods when they're talking, and Howard Alpha was like, yeah, no, I was just tortured and beaten, sleep deprived. How were you doing the last month? How was your month? You know, a la, you were hanging out with my wife the whole time, and having sex with her, and pretending to be me. Great, I'm glad you got off really great. So, you could see the enmity a little bit between them there. You know, starting that little like, oh, are they yannicking? Are they yannicking? So they get.
Well, you could also too ask if he was getting to the point where he, you know, where the distance between how they are as people, might be,
the gap is narrowed in terms of I'm not just a paper pusher. I'm a guy who's been through Guantanamo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they get to the remote location. Naiad's got all of her troops out there. They're very careful to mention that it's still not public knowledge. These are Office of Interchange folks. Should we bring the police in? No, kind of thing. So, still kind of, you know, on the hush hush. They get in there. It's Ethel. The whole place is wired, and so Emily Alpha's like, let me talk to her. Emily Alpha goes and sits with her and tries to talk her down, basically. Ethel confides that, I was supposed to already be dead. I'm having a hard time doing that, killing myself. And Emily Alpha's like, I've been in a place where I didn't, I have a chance to change my future too. And, we can do this together. She takes the gun from Ethel. Looks like things might be okay, but there's a tripwire that on their way out, on the way in, Emily Alpha avoided. On the way out, Ethel's like, on second thought, I was supposed to kill myself. I'm gonna honor my programming and
who knows what she was thinking,
and blow herself up. Yeah, I feel like she just. Also maybe she thought, I'm about to get in prison for the rest of my life. They're probably not going to treat me well on this side. She's been taught to believe that the Alpha side is horrible.
Yeah, I don't know. One of the things you always hear, and that's what I'm thinking of right now, is in terms of people who have decided to kill themselves.
Okay.
And the change that comes over them. And she may just become resolved after that
Right.
conversation. Like, you know what? This is what I'm supposed to do.
It's just easier to kill yourself than not, almost.
Well, it's like, you're like, phew, that's a load off. Now I'm just going to kill myself. Not do all the things you talked about, because that sounds hard.
Yeah, right. It sounds like weeks later I'll still be doing stuff.
Yeah, it's I still have to deal with how much of my life that I gave up for this crap.
Yeah. So she blows up the building blows up herself and blows up Emily Alpha, who eventually succumbs from her injuries.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought, I don't know. I'm just an amateur.
Yeah.
I'm
you're not professional.
I don't, SWAT team guy.
No, you're not.
Might have been helpful to put a wire or something on Emily Alpha so they could hear the conversation.
Oh, sure.
Not necessarily even just to get the info that she eventually learns, but no one knows. That would
have
been helpful.
Yeah.
But also just to see how the thing is going. Like, you would want to know if the person's going like, and I'm going to kill you any second.
Right,
like, you'd be like, okay, we should do something.
Right.
But as it was, they were like completely just like, waiting for her.
Look okay.
Yeah, she looks like she's all right.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how readily people have that available to them.
Right.
Would have
say in the interest of time, she had to go. And, didn't get the little wire pack.
Maybe it wasn't there. So there you go. They didn't have it. They're like, we're going to raid a place. We're not going to do a hostage thing.
We don't even talk to each other. That's fine. Anyway, so the fact is, very important information Ethel gives out. Hey, they're all going to meet at this train station at 11 o'clock. The place is blah. No one else knows it.
No.
Only Emily Alpha.
Only Emily Alpha.
So she's in the ambulance. She's basically on the verge of death.
It's a dying declaration. No,
dying declaration. Howard Alpha's riding in the ambulance with her. She writes out the location on a sheet of paper. And here's probably my biggest problem with this particular episode.
The whole series.
No, it was just like she's dying. She's like, this is the one piece of information that I'm going to write down to you. Like, you need to know right now. He gets it. puts it in his pocket, goes to the hospital. They work on her. You see time, they have the little montage where like time passes. No one else is in the hallway. He's still in the hallway. Doctor comes up. Sorry, we did everything we could. The doctor leaves. He's still standing there. Like, this information is going to either save the world or let it die. Maybe give that to somebody. Maybe read it. I don't know. Anyway, the fact that he let that go, and I get it. He was so distraught about Emily Alpha that was all that he cared about in that moment. But man, that's important. Okay. Anyway, it was important to her. Plus the fact that, let's say, I think he could figure out it has something to do with stopping the flu epidemic. So if he doesn't stop the flu epidemic, she'd probably die anyway, right, even if she survives this, unless you stop it. Now, you brought up an interesting point that you thought maybe it's because he almost wants the world to die. Now, I didn't get that out of it, but what
it could. But also, though, another thing that occurs to me is, I mean, that's what they were saying in the thing where it's like, no, you're not going to go out there. We have to protect you. The world is in danger. He's coming like, and so now he's lost his world after being tortured and everything. So, and lost sleep. So, perhaps he wasn't thinking about it. Perhaps he wasn't focused on it, or he really did lose everything. So he's like, I'm not gonna think about it until after I nearly kill someone.
Right, I'll take the world down with me almost. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Or let it burn.
Fine. Yeah,
I'm out of this.
Yeah,
I'm not playing
because the
anymore.
thing that you could say he retrieved or got back again is who he was after confronting, Howard Prime, and so found out that he is a good person. He doesn't want to help people. He's not like Howard Alpha. So wait, he's not like Howard Prime. He's his own man who's not as evil as that. So
yeah,
maybe he just needed that moment to find it.
So there is this moment we talked about, and which we foresaw coming, which was the Howard are being confrontational, a la the two Yannicks from the Twin Cities episode. In that version, the two Yannicks fight. One Yannick kills the other, and bad things obviously come about from that. In this case, Howard Alpha pulls a gun on Howard Prime, basically blames him for Emily Alpha's death. He reveals to Howard Prime that Emily Alpha is in fact dead.
Yes.
I did like the moment before that where Howard Prime was gonna get into the ambulance, and I think it's
it's not your wife.
It's not your wife.
Yeah.
I thought that was a interesting moment. So
it's interesting though. I'm not exactly sure. It's like he's saying you should have contacted her.
Right, you shouldn't have answered the notes.
Yeah,
I think is what he was basically saying. Which, again, I think it is a tenuous. But he's. I could see that he just wants to blame.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
And he's also mad at this guy for pretending to be him for this time, and he doesn't necessarily even know the motivation. I mean, I think we can understand that Howard Prime's motivation, at least for most of that time, before he started really having feelings for Emily Alpha, was like trying to save the world, right? I mean, like, you have information that needs to come out.
Right.
I'm going to try to facilitate that.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily, I don't think Howard Prime's motivation from the beginning was, and if I turn into Howard Alpha, I can just take his life and I'll be happy. I don't think that was it. No. But Howard Alpha doesn't necessarily know that. I think Howard Alpha's been told, "Oh, he's trying to take over your life." I mean, that was Yannick's.
Yeah.
Kept telling him that all the time. There's a part of him that maybe believes that.
Maybe. I think he's just, mad that there was this whole life of getting involved with this that they could have avoided, and so she did that, and he was afraid to confront her about it, and and now it's resulted in her death, and he's lost everything. He was afraid of losing all along.
He blames himself and is, in some ways, just kind of transferring that guilt. You get, sometimes when people feel guilty, they lash out.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe part of what he's feeling as
Could
well.
be.
Like, you helped facilitate this whole... If you had just hadn't answered those notes, she would have given up on this stupid idea, and then she'd still be here, and then we'd all die of the flu. But whatever.
Yeah.
So he's got the gun on him, And this is, yeah, so they pass the Yannick test in that neither one of them dies. But I do feel like it is both of them participating in this moment. Because I get, I feel like Howard Prime could fairly easily disarm Howard Alpha and take him out if he wanted. We've seen him do it. We saw him do it in season 1. It was a car where he had like 3 agents on him. He's like, boop, 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 and then he's there. So the fact that he allows Howard Alpha, he basically gives up. He's like, closes his eyes. He's not going to try to fight back. And it's that acceptance, I think, that helps Howard Alpha even maybe see like...
Well, maybe more than that, him saying that I would do that if I were you.
Yeah, that line is amazing, by the way. I love the, go ahead, shoot me. I'd do it if I were you. And that, I think I mentioned to you, like, that feels like probably the first scene that was ever written for this series. It's like some guy's like, check it out. 2 guys, they're the same guy, but at some point they split off, but they're the same, they're identical, and then one of them is going to try to shoot the other one. The other one's like, go ahead. I'd do it if I were you, and then that would be awesome. Let's write a series that leads to that scene, because it was very, very cool, and so much is packed into the meaning of if I were you. It's great, and the line delivery is perfect. It's really, really, really good. So yes, Howard Alpha passes the test, doesn't shoot his other, and then says, "Oh, by the way, Emily Alpha had this note that I probably should have given you a long time ago. Here's the thing." She probably meant this for you. And as basically, Indigo's plot is undone because they couldn't just get an earlier train. That's kind of thing. When we see them in broad daylight saying, we're all leaving now, you stay here, Ethel. And their plan is, we're going to wait at the train station until 11 p.m. and that's when we'll take off. The next day. So, yeah, if they'd have just... check the train schedule and gotten something leaving at, say, 1, then their plan would have been perfect. Anyway.
Hey, their non-Prince world is our world. So look at you rooting for us to die.
Go, Indigo, go. No. But I'm just saying that, again, it just nice that they were leaving at 11 because it coincided with the fact that the note was still relevant. Otherwise, the note is not relevant at all. Thanks to Howard Alpha tucking it away. But it is relevant. Howard Prime goes to the train station, confronts our villains, and just takes them all out.
Takes them all out.
With ease.
Yeah, it's very satisfying. Their deaths.
And there's a cop that comes in at one point, and the cop doesn't fare well, but he helps Howard Prime achieve his mission. So... it's a kind of a brutal scene, and then he just takes people out very, very quickly, throws the gun away, and it seems like everything's fine.
Yeah,
it's not fine.
No.
But we also then see that so Naya, Temple, and Peter are like, oh, we gotta. It's the train stations where this stuff's happening. Should we include the police? And Peter's like, we never. Like, what do we do? What's the protocol for bringing in the police? We don't. And so she's like, well, we're doing it this time. This is important. So they bring in actually public officials, and you see people in hazmat suits, and there's a whole a combined effort. So while I'm sure they haven't told them, oh, they're from the other side of them. There's the chance that this kind of information might suddenly get out to the public, perhaps. If there had been a season 3, maybe this would be the origin of some kind of a public knowledge about the other side. We should mention something skipped over because it was started at the end of the last episode, but Mira's talk to both sides, read this message at the same time, gets read. And it's basically, hey, management's closing everything. We're done. The experiment was a failure. We were idiots. We're horrible people. Never try to contact us again because we're idiots and hard. Did I mention we're idiots and horrible and this was a dumb experiment? Yeah. Anyway, close it all up. You had 24 hours to send each other's prisoners back And then we're closing everything up. We're closing up shop. All right. So we then see the shop being closed up.
Yep.
Essentially.
Welding it shut.
Yeah. They Howard Prime and Baldwin both get to go back to the Prime side first before they close everything up.
Yeah.
We see the exchange happen. We see the West Wing. Roland has a last chat with his other, not his other, sorry, but the person with his job title.
His opposing.
Yeah. Right. Person on the Prime side, and they're still negotiating. Oh, even though it's the last day of negotiating, he's negotiating for because again they've got really the good medical products because of the flu on the Prime side, and we've got the cool science gadgets on our side. So it's a terabyte flash drive versus some kind of a medical maybe it was the device that Howard Alpha's daughter was using on him. I don't know, but anyway, something about stopping blood flow or something. And so you could say I liked that scene. You didn't say you had a problem with it, but you were like, why not just give them everything at that point?
Yes. No.
I like the fact that they were enjoying.
Oh yeah, no, that was a good scene that they were doing that. I'm just.
If you really believe you're never going to see him again, what the hell? Here, take my stuff.
No, I'm more looking at towards what the ultimate meaning of the show is in that moment. So this whole hey, let's keep viewing each other distrustfully, even though certainly it's drawing a lot of examples from the Cold War where it's okay, we're gonna pass information, but in a guarded way because we have to guard our secrets. But they're the same, but because of their disagreements, they've been at war. But I think a better message to have greater compassion for each other. Like here, we will give you all that we can, and you can give us all.
Right. So you're saying it is an interesting story note that they're still guarding each other's secrets and divvying stuff out, even at the last second.
Yeah.
Up to the last second, they're not like, here, look, what'll help your people the most? Here, take this. They're still being guarded. So, crossing gets closed. We did see Mira does not kill Ian. Says that she might need him later, so she's going to keep Nomi alive and Ian alive. He plants a tracker on one of her management cases, and then writes a note to Emily Prime, assuming Emily Prime's going to come looking for him. Emily Prime, notably, the next day when she comes into the office, sees that Mira is no longer in jail, that she's out and Ian's gone. So she knows that Mira escaped. Ian then writes a note like, hey, I'm sorry. I forgot kind of his, other than his, and here's how you find Mira. I forgot what his little context was, which is basically, I'm going to go and find myself, or I don't know. So he did see that, he's stalking Nomi, but he sees that she's in a committed relationship, it looks like, with another guy. So he kills that guy. Damn you.
Starting to learn a lot about you.
Emily Prime then kills Mira. So Mira comes home, turns the light switch on, gets the little prick in the finger. Same thing that happened to Emily Alpha when Indigo tried to set her up, frame her in the season 1.
That was Prime.
I'm sorry, Emily Prime. Yeah, right. But yeah, in season 1, it was done to her to make her look like an addict and a junkie or whatever. Yeah. And so she did it back, except she used a lethal dose of whatever that thing is.
Yes.
And so as Mira is dying, she kind of gives she lets the cat out of the bag by saying, "Oh right, I never went to visit my other," which answered the question I had from previous episodes. I wonder if she ever went to visit her. She didn't. She's like, she was too perfect. In her world, she had her kids and her life, but she'll die in her own time, just like all the rest. Something like that. I'm like, oh crap. And she expires. So, yeah, she injected Yannick with the flu as kind of a backup plan. I almost got that right. I was wrong on the person. I thought I had a theory. We had a bunch of theories, many of which didn't go right. Some of them did. Well, one of my theories was that when Yannick injected Howard Alpha, that was the backup plan.
He was a carrier,
and that Howard Alpha was the carrier.
Was a crazy plan.
It was a crazy plan. That was not the plan.
No.
Yannick was the backup.
Yes, Yannick.
So that was interesting too, because we see Mira fails the Yannick test, right? In the previous episode, she tells Yannick, "Hey, I'm going to send you back, and when you go back, you should visit your daughter. She's got daughters of her own now. She's got a family. I hear she's doing well. You should go visit her." I would put forth that that's the whole reason she left Yannick alive in the first place.
Could be.
She wanted Yannick to be the backup, go kill everybody on the other side with the flu, but also kill my other.
Could be.
So she's jealous of the life that Alpha Mira had, and so she wants to make sure to punish her other. So she sends Yannick back, go deal with her. You'll be one of the first ones to breathe in the wonderful, infectious, So she kills her other essentially. We can feel fairly confident that at least that granddaughter's in real trouble.
Yeah.
So it's really, vindictive as hell is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, kind of like father, like daughter, she she fails the test. Anyway, let's put it that way.
Well, the way we pulled it, right? I mean, Yannick would think, "Oh yeah, this is with my findings."
Yeah, that's true. It's like, "Oh, see, I should have been testing you the whole time."
Yeah. The way that I was,
you proved my hypothesis.
Yes, exactly.
And now I'll die. So those are the main. Then there's a great conversation. It's kind of after everything's happened. Spencer is now in jail or whatever, imprisoned, and Peter's been reinstated. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, so Peter talks to Spencer, and Spencer's like, "Oh yeah, I don't know, why we valued, we
idolized her
so much. Yeah. You know what she did to her other." And then we cut to Peter kind of being pensive at home, and Claire has conversations like, I need to tell you something. If we're gonna make this life work, I need to go ahead and tell you something. And Peter has the great line. Does it have to be tonight? Do we have to do this tonight? And then they immediately go off into renaming Spencer. They're like, I'd rather not have this Spencer's name. She's like, I think we can do that. Let's say we're Griselda. And that line and the way that they interact, I really appreciated. I didn't see how, back when they originally were having this relationship at the end of season 1, I was like, what? This relationship can't work. Yeah. And they've actually shown a way it can work. I kind of buy into the fact that in that moment, I think what he's saying is, I've already forgiven you I know generally what you did. You know what? If you tell me specifics, I might start rethinking forgiving you. I'd rather just forgive you. I've done it already. I've gone through the emotional trauma of forgiving you for killing my Claire. Let's just move on. I think that's what I got out of it.
I didn't get that. I just got, you don't want to take in too much at one time. That's all.
Just dribs and drabs next month.
Yeah.
Give me one little.
Yeah.
Give me piece number 2.
Here's the chicken that you love so much, and I killed my other. Would you like some more potatoes?
Here are 3 other people I killed, and would you like a? Okay, all right. I just feel like he's already put in his mind, I've forgiven you, and the more we talk about it, the more I'd rather just forgive you and move on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like he's been through a lot personally, where he has really been humbled by the fact that he had this image of himself, and that he was trying to prop up, I think, even after he got the position that he did. But I think he was having affairs because he really had that.
It's true.
Sense.
We had to remember he was not just like ethical angel.
No.
Like he was, he was having an affair.
Right.
He was.
But yeah, he said many times after, he thought he was going to die, and he thought he was going to kill himself, and that his secretary killed herself. That he saw it all, or it was all happening in front of him, and he just had no clue. And so I think he had an appreciation. Oh, and when he made that call to Claire, ostensibly just to say that, we can't come home tonight because there's this thing, but he really thought that that he really wanted to. So I think he really feels a bond, and he's really been fighting for that. So I think he's just being cautious about that. But I think you could argue that they are both getting a lot from the fact that they're being honest about who they were. I mean, I think that's why I really like the scene when he was asking her about, you really believe this? He's like, you've been brainwashed. But he was in the previous episode, when he was really being patient with understanding about how she had to come to that position. He knows she's been damaged. So I think he assumes that she killed her, and that I don't think he's going to think it's not beneficial to them to have it out so they both can process that and move on. Okay. It's a part of how she was manipulated.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Right. Yeah. He's right. He's acknowledges the horrors she had to undergo to become a different person.
Yeah.
And is willing to forgive that.
Yeah, and the fact that I think you can look at both of them and how they're still, because they're protecting, and even though it's like lies to everybody outside, they've told each other so much already. I think.
And they've got this daughter that's their anchor.
Yeah. Until she dies of the flu.
Until she dies of the flu. So she's got half prime, or maybe she's immune to it. I don't know. Okay. So we do see then. So Naya Temple is still involved with tracking down perhaps remaining cells, and so she kind of enlists the aid of Claire. Claire tells her, sure, I'll help out, but in order to do that, I need to keep my credibility, so I need to still keep a secret. I need to keep my identity secret from my parents.
Well,
we need to get Peter reinstated.
Yes, exactly. Well, she was like, whoa.
It sounds like a tough deal, but...
I know, right? Because, we can't trust that guy. Like, you got to work something out. Okay, fine.
Yeah, all right.
I need to have, the credibility of the people that I'm going to hunt down.
So, theoretically, if there was a season 3, we would see Naya, Claire, and Peter still working at the idea of tracking down prime terrorists, essentially. Now, one thing I was a little unclear on is the state of this Office of Interchange, right? So, Mira comes on pretending to be management, says we're all closed, go away, and they shut everything down and they weld it shut. Yeah. You would think then you'd be like, all right, everybody go home. I mean, but as you pointed out, at least on the Alpha side, we got to still track down potential threats, so we're going to stay open for that reason. But the whole interchange itself at this point is closed.
Right.
What do they keep? Do they just downsize the staff? Maybe they don't need all the departments.
Maybe, yeah.
The other thing that I thought though is because Emily Prime saw that Mira had escaped and then killed Mira, and probably could talk to Ian. Ian is still alive after all.
Right.
Eventually, and probably in the near future, it's gonna come to light that management's dead, or that Mira was pretending to be management the whole time. I mean, Mira had the cases, for
Right.
instance, so that's how Emily Prime tracked her to her place, is that she had the cases. So, and I think people will listen to Emily Prime. She seems to be a fairly credible agent. So I think at some point they're going to realize, oh, this wasn't management closing this thing. This was terrorists closing this thing. Let's reopen. And so they'll come up with a new set of rules for it. They'll probably have new management. Well, they have to because management's dead. So maybe it's like some group, probably including maybe Emily Prime, is running things from the Prime
that's
side.
the way they could do it if they were going to continue. I wonder if so one thing that happens when people make a show is they sort of have an idea about how it ends.
Yeah.
And when a show ends up getting canceled before its time, they're like, okay, let's move that up.
Yeah.
It's possible that that's what they thought, the people making the show. As much as I would be interested in what would happen if they, the idea of if it would reopen up. I don't know if that was the original plan, actually. I wonder if, I think that was the ultimate thing. I think they really do believe, or at least that's what it seems like anyway, they do believe that they're better off having separate worlds and not having any connection, which I don't prefer. But
Well, it also seems like, let's say, just from a bureaucratic standpoint, if you're a higher up at Office of Interchange and you're like, you've been there for 20 years, doing your thing, getting your paycheck, and then suddenly overnight you're just told like, oh, the whole place is closing down, no follow-up questions, we're not even going to get verification on any of this, and it's done, goodbye. Like, you just your own self, you'd be like, could we, are we sure? You know, like I think there'd be some pushback to be like, are we 100% sure?
although
this
you
is the
could
case?
argue that one of the things they were saying when Naya Temple, when she was confronting them with how poorly organized they are and how like they basically protecting their egos and all this, they're so in love with this structure. The structure is you get an order, you do it.
Yeah, and the fact that the management's so mysterious.
Yeah. And now there's no way to find them.
And there's no way to find them, and yeah. So,
but really, the crime occurred, looks like, on the Prime side. So now they don't even have access to that information at all.
Right.
So the place that seems to be more motivated.
I guess I'm just saying, if you wanted to rationalize opening it back up, that's how you do it. I think.
Yeah,
you
sure.
could say, oh, well,
Yeah.
Emily Prime is primed to find out that information. The other thing you could theoretically do, although I think I mentioned this to you and you were like, would be that maybe the place remains officially closed, but up top, where the interchange rooms are, that we saw that you can move over sides in the interchange rooms, maybe one of those gets like secretly open, and so a certain number of people can kind of, secretly pass back and forth.
It's possible, though, that this interchange room is just like, okay, here's the barrier, and what they do is they go to one side, and then they keep separate because they want to control it, but they're really on one side. I would think that's actually how they do it.
Potentially. I'm just saying that could be another way that if you wanted to have not a public opening
that
of the
seems
place.
more complicated because then it's like, why don't they weld that part too?
Yeah,
they would just weld it if that was the case.
I hear you.
So,
but not as well. It's like glass, and they're like, oh, just put some 2x4s on it. That's fine. Anyway, that's another possibility because if there was a season 3, you'd think at some point someone has to breach the crossing again. Either it's publicly opened,
if their plan
subterfuge.
was to close them at the end of the season originally, and I don't think it would have been.
Yeah. Okay. You think they closed it now because they were like trying to come up with a little bow, put a bow on it thing?
I do. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So.
And I think they probably wouldn't have killed Emily at this point, and I think they could have gotten a lot more out of having Emily Alpha and Emily and Howard Alpha
Sure.
together.
That relationship,
Yeah.
watching it grow and or deteriorate would be fascinating.
Yeah. So the fact that they killed her, and that plausibly gave Howard a reason to not want to do it. I think it would have been great. It's like, oh, we still need you, and then have him start to say, okay, what do I need to do to start getting better at this,
Right, because so Howard Alpha, that's another thing, important moment is he tells Naya, I'm out. Like, I don't want to do this anymore or whatever. I'm not involved in this. So he steps away. Again, I think obviously if there was a season 3, he'd get pulled. They keep pulling me back in. He'd get pulled back in somehow. I also think perhaps they would investigate his relationship now that Emily Alpha's dead, and we know that he had such a strong romantic relationship with Emily Prime. I feel like that relationship would probably get explored again. I think Emily Prime
maybe.
Anyway, but I
would have liked to see the daughter again.
Yeah, you're right. The daughter is
it's like that's something that perhaps been interesting if Howard Prime had reevaluated his relationships.
That's a season 3 thing, I think. Would be a Howard Prime trying to take some of the lessons from Howard Alpha and employ them with his daughter. So we're left with there is a plague a-coming.
Yes.
Especially in that area in Germany. Germany's going to be in real trouble.
Maybe, or one thing you could see that they did though is they treated the area where they killed all the so they are geared up. So even though they find a patient who has it more extremely,
that's the problem.
Perhaps
they caught those folks when they hadn't really had symptoms yet.
No, but they knew that what they were, okay, let's treat it, whatever. So they knew what they were looking for. It wasn't like, we don't know anything, and then.
Good point. Point. You think that maybe they could get away with
quarantining
30 people died as opposed to 30 million people died.
So
also the fact that obviously Indigo wanted to spread it to Warsaw and Madrid, the fact that it would be confined to a park in the middle of Germany,
and whatever place he's been to in between, but
right, or because his symptoms, I don't know, we don't know how it spreads, right. For a while he probably wasn't that symptomatic. But who knows? Yeah. But you're right. It's probably not as terrible a global pandemic as it would have been.
Yeah.
It's just really bad for anybody living in Germany, like the entire cast. Anyway, so if you've got thoughts for what a season 3 might have been, would it be? Would we see the crossing reopen? Would we see Emily Prime and Howard Alpha perhaps? Do we ship that? Do we see Claire and Peter and Naya finding these other cells, and what might those cells be doing? What more did they do at this point? We've still got stuff to do now that we've killed off half the population and we're sealed on this side. I always thought it would be interesting to go to see the effects, or just see that, in the U.S., what would the U.S., how would they react to knowing? Maybe it's a public knowledge. As I mentioned, the cops get involved with the thing, so maybe somehow everyone knows now that there's this other world that we've sealed off, so we're not even going to go there anymore. So there'd be a push to maybe open that again, to be like, we want to see this other world.
Right.
You don't know what you're asking for.
Or other countries might not be as pleased with the decision to close off.
Right.
And so maybe they might try to, steal the information about how it was created in the first place, so they can create it in their own place.
Right. Or hey, look, we don't have enough space for all the people in if there's a place over there where we can actually move our people to, and they could have the land to more food, whatever. I don't know. I mean, you could imagine a situation where a country might be like, hey, wait, what? What did we just do?
Yeah, right.
I feel like those are all options for a season 3 that's at this point seems unlikely, but hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Very, very good show. Well, just the writing is great.
Yeah.
The acting, first rate. It just had so much going for it. it would be a shame if it didn't pick up a season 3. So we'll keep hoping that happens until it doesn't.
Although if you're of the belief that no, 2 seasons is enough, you can opining.
That's true. It did remind me a little bit of the show
I'm
Carnival.
not that, but
Carnival was I believe it was a 2-season show that kind of ended abruptly. Another very quality show, similar to this in a way, and it ended with this like, oh, we've resolved the main conflict, but it could be that the big bad can come back, and that was kind of the suggestion of like bad things could be on the horizon. And then we never saw that again, so it's kind of a similar like, oh, whoa, okay. So yes, Counterpart. Very glad that we covered it. We're going to be still talking about Discovery. Yes. I think we're going to launch into the Umbrella Academy. Just came out on Netflix. Yeah. And there's a lot of cool things coming down the road. There's the Twilight Zone. Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone is coming up fairly soon. They've announced a release date for Good Omens. That's coming out in May, I think. Yeah. There's some other things that I'm forgetting at this point.
Yeah,
but,
I know. So I was looking at my phone.
There are cool things on the way, in other words, on the horizon, and we will be talking about those in detail as well. And just as my own aside, I'm loving True Detective. Oh, it doesn't really match with the Dork Lords, but
how can you forget American Gods?
American Gods, of course, stars. That's
and Game of Thrones in a number of months.
That's just not that far, right? April.
Yeah.
So it's not that far off. Mm-hmm. Good point. We're going to be covering American Gods and Game of Thrones, of course. And so, yes, very, very cool stuff coming up. But yeah, anyway, True Detective, they got one more episode. I'm hooked on that show. Talking about good writing. Yikes. Awesome. But we're not covering it.
No.
Because it doesn't really fit Dork Lords. But if we were just doing a show on quality TV,
there you go. Not this.
We're talking about
this. Not this show.
Anyway, all right. So there you go. Counterpart, everybody. We hardly knew ye.
Yes.
And so thanks so much, everybody. And we will talk to you later. Bye.